Hey. So I have some statistics to follow up with that video because I was so fucking pissed that people just can't have conversations. You know, we just can't disagree like adults. Everyone's egos get involved and I have to be right. So this is what the video was saying. By the way, I should have tagged Tim's Instagram. He's known as Tim the Biohacker. I don't really love the whole hacking terminology, but basically it's like tips and tricks and, you know, like hacks to wellness and longevity, and like that's kind of his jam. So what he was saying was that the average 23-year-old male and female has 25 partners by the age of 23 years old. If you've had 9 or more partners before marriage, you have a 70% increased chance of divorce. This creates the casual encounters, they're finding, statistically speaking, creates poor pair bonding. So our brains are wired to connect emotional connectivity with sex. That is much more explosive and higher in women because women get the hit of oxytocin. And then a woman was arguing with me online that men get this too. They can, but it is very specific. You have to hit certain erogenous zones and certain points for that to happen. It is way more common in women. It is why a man can roll over after sex and the woman's like, I want to be held, I want to be cuddled. And the guy's like, why? You know? Or a man can just go, I feel more easily from one partner to the next. And I believe that is a very real physiological response. Men are wired differently. I've said this a million times before. I also think that it's just, you know, women were told that it was bad and wrong to have more than one partner and you were a whore and you were a slut. I understand why the women might be triggered, but to be attacked and called a misogynist repeatedly. I can't tell you how many men posted, do you know this is a woman saying this and you're calling another woman a misogynist? And if you did your research, you would know that she was like speaking truth, but it doesn't matter. And I do appreciate those men. It's just really fascinating. But women are very much designed to bond in a different way with men sexually. Absolutely, men have the capability of creating an emotional connection with a woman through sex, but it is more rare. That's all I'm saying. So there's poor pair bonding. And then this is really interesting. If you know anything about the attachment theory, avoidant, anxious, or you can just be, have really healthy, like secure attachment, they call it. Because of all of these casual encounters, attachment anxiety in both males and females has increased exponentially. I personally don't understand how any male, especially a female, and you have to remember, I have 2 daughters. I can't imagine my 22-year-old coming to me and say, I've slept with 25 guys. I just don't think that's healthy. I think maybe men need to be more educated in this area, and I'm not saying that in like a pretentious ego type of way, but maybe it surprises men that for women, the energetic confusion that it causes us to have multiple partners, I do think it happens with men. Maybe it's more subtle, or men just don't have that level of awareness of why they're feeling the way they're feeling or what they're experiencing in their body and their mind and their heart. But it creates mass confusion. It's an energetic trip up. We are not designed to have 25 partners by the age of 23. That's just insane. Now, being in the mental health field, I've seen high numbers due to sexual abuse, molestation, where it will express in the opposite way that you would think. There are some clients that just become completely shut down and asexual because they're so traumatized, and there's others that express sexual abuse through sexual acts. And there's a whole psychology behind that I'm not going to get into, but that's a very real thing. So I will go over that again. The average 23-year-old has slept with 25 people. If you've had 9 or more partners by the time you get married, the divorce rate increases to 77%. All of these casual encounters is creating poor pair bonding and increasing anxiety attachment. And anxiety attachment is if you've ever been called needy or desperate in relationships, and I have, because I was super anxiety attached because I did not have proper attachment as a kid from certain people in my life. And so it expressed in a way of neediness and desperation, and can create codependent relationships as well. But I just didn't understand the attachment theory. I didn't understand what was happening. And so, you're told that you're needy and desperate. And it's really interesting. I can only speak for my experience with my ex-husband, who, if you've ever heard me talk about my ex-husband before, he's not the greatest guy in the world, but he's not the worst guy. I talk to my daughters all the time about trying to find the good. And I've helped them do that because there were points where they didn't want to have a relationship with him. And I didn't want that for my kids, but I also understood why, because having an alcoholic parent is very, very difficult. And so, I'm proud of them that they got themselves help. Of course, I encouraged it, and there's always resistant. I was super resistant when I was younger. And then they were like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to go get help. We're going to go talk to somebody about this. My ex-husband has amazing redeeming qualities. And ironically, I was in a situation with more of a narcissist, controlling, manipulative personality. And so he would say things to me like, well, you have to get your own life and you have no friends. And I'm that person that has like 2 friends and I'm good. I'm not like my youngest, and one of my sisters was like this. My ex-husband was like this, super social. And to them, being successful in friendships in life was having a million, you're surrounded by a million people. You're constantly charismatic. You have to be out there all the time. I have no interest in that. I love hermiting. I'm deeply introverted, although I may not express it in that way. I love my alone time. But in a partnership back in that day, I think what my ex-husband failed to realize that, of course, I was identifying as a wife and a mom. That was a very important role for me. It was a priority. It was a huge goal. Now my kids are like, we don't know if we ever want to get married or have kids. That's what I always wanted. That's all I wanted. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So, that was the other thing. I was with somebody where I was a stay-at-home mom, and it was like, when are you going to get off your ass and get a job? And then I got a job, and it was like, why isn't food on the table? Why is the laundry stacked up? You're asking me to do the dishes. You're asking me to help clean the house. You're asking me to help go food shopping. He was very much a man's man, like otherworldly, old school. And that's kind of what I married. And so when it came to like chipping in and helping out, so the guy who told me for 2 years to get off my ass and get a job, when I did, he's like, you need to quit. And then as a stay-at-home mom, I did nothing, for years, I did nothing. What do you do all day? Even when I did say, I'm really not happy, this is just not going to work out and I want to leave the marriage, I was told, who's going to want you and your baggage? 2 kids. That was the baggage that he was referring to. So for me, I'm sharing this now very boldly and authentically, because I really don't want to talk about him in that time in my life, because it's over. It's over. No takesies, backsies, can't change it. That's the guy I married. We brought forth 2 kids into the world. And I say to my kids all the time, you really need to be smart about picking your partner, because I was young and dumb and I didn't know any better. And I did basic psychology 101. married my dad, brought that same person in, that same energy, and recreated my mother's life, my family dynamic. So common. But now we have information, we have tools, there's things that you can do to completely mitigate that. We understand green flags, we understand red flags. If you think my parents were sitting down and talking about stuff like that with me, no, it just didn't happen, right? The consciousness wasn't there, the information wasn't there. It was there, but maybe not so out there. So I wanted to clarify some of that, because those stats are insane. And then I also wanted to add this in, and I will link in the description this gentleman's name. There is a man who created a company for boys and men, because what's happening with men and boys in society today really breaks my heart, and it's sad. And it's also why I get upset with these postmodern feminists who are such man haters, because number one, that's not helpful. I was very much a woman who was stuffed down. There was abuse in my home as a child. There was abuse in my intimate relationship with my husband. I had abusive boyfriends when I was in high school and college before I got married, because I didn't know any better. To me, that was normal. Even though I knew it was wrong, and I would say out loud it was wrong, you were told, don't talk about it. That's not really happening. You're making it up. If you know, you know. I don't need people to feel bad for me. I'm never looking for sympathy when I share these things. But if you come from a similar background, then you probably have a better understanding of what I'm talking about, especially with alcoholism and addiction, right? It's like, shh, or just completely pretend. There's so much denial, and there's so much, whatchamacallit, why can't I think of the word? Enabling. There's always the enabler and the alcoholic family. And that one kid who's like the champion of the alcoholic, because just statistically and scientifically that happens. It's very interesting. You can actually look at the birth order of children and the role that they'll play in a home with addiction. And there's like all this science behind it. It's partially why I wanted so badly to focus on the addiction field, because I was so fascinated by all that stuff, and it checked out with kind of my personal experience. But back to the guy. This guy, I will link it. He wrote a book, and he started a company for boys and men. And he said some profound things in a video. I just discovered him recently. And I've talked about before that the suicide rate for men has quadrupled. And these men and young men, and just men in general, that are not in partnership have a lot more mental health challenges, a lot. So a lot of these women running around being man haters and fuck men and blah, 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 and it's better being single, and I'm so empowered as being single, that is not helping, and it's not helping our men. And it's why I get so upset with those women, because coming out of all of the abuse, coming out of everything, a healed woman, a woman who's very strong in her power and femininity, is going to be able to speak very neutral about the feminine and the masculine. And I was enraged. I hated men. I had so much animosity towards men when I came out of the marriage. Was never going to get married again. Didn't want anything to do with dating. It was a whole big thing. So you're seeing a lot of that out on social media. They're just very unhealed men and women, deeply, deeply wounded, and hurt people. And then you have all of the bickering and the male bashing and the women bashing and all of that. And I'm coming, and that's why I started a co-ed adventure group, because I'm coming from the perspective of we need to learn how to get along, get back into union, understand men and women better. If you are a man watching this, your job is to understand women better. And if you're a woman watching this, your job is to understand men better. That is the only way that we are going to get back to a place of peace and neutrality, playing nice in the sandbox. That's why all of my events are co-ed. because I really want to help men and women heal this deep wound. And a lot of us have it. And for most of us, it started in childhood with a real shit father or a real shit mother, or maybe, and my heart breaks for you if you didn't even have role models and both your parents were terrible. And I'm so sorry for that, because I wish I could have had more than 2 kids. I wanted to adopt. I wanted to birth another baby into the world, just never found the right partner to do that. I absolutely adore children, and no child should have to go through that. Why people bring kids into the world and decide that they hate kids is like, I just don't get it. So I would never be one of those mothers to pressure my kids to have kids, because if my kids really don't want to have kids, my heart will be broken. I want the experience of being a grandparent, but at the end of the day, you have to really want to have kids, or you just shouldn't be a parent. So I will link this guy. I think as a man, you'll be really pleased with some of the things, the content that this gentleman pushes out. And the one thing that fascinated me, and I hope every woman is being super attentive to this as well. I think men, you'll really appreciate this. He said that he finally caved and went to couples therapy with his wife, who he is still married to. And what came out of those sessions shocked him. He thought that his job in today's world, because he talks a lot about men's role has changed, right? And a lot of women are the breadwinners, or they're kind of like so empowered and so independent. And he thought his job was to support his wife's business and to boost his wife up. And in therapy, it came out where his wife said, I don't need you to be more feminine. I need you to be more masculine. And a lot of men are losing their masculinity. And so what he learned was that he did not have to make himself small to bolster and make his wife bigger. And I think a lot of men are interpreting female empowerment and the new postmodern feminist movement as that. Well, I'm just going to shrink myself because women have been so oppressed and so disempowered, and like, that's not helpful. That's not what we're asking you to do. That's not what we want you to do. Absolutely not. I said this on a hike one day, and it was predominantly women on the hike, and one of the girls got pissed at me. I was like, I like a man to be a man. I like a man to be super, super strong in his masculinity. Oh, that's toxic. That's toxic. No. No, it's not. So I will leave you with that, because that is one of the most empowering things I've ever heard a man say, is I do not have to shrink myself to bolster my wife up. And I need to be more focused and stronger in my masculinity and less feminine. It is her job to be feminine. It's your job to be masculine. So getting back to those more defined roles, which is very difficult to do in today's political climate, but we know that there are things going on behind the scenes to really push this transhuman agenda. Don't get caught up in that. Please don't. I hope this brings more clarity to why I was so irate, because I know I was just irate. I was just venting and just aggravated, and I should have had my ducks in order to back it up. In my defense, I moved, and I've had to move back and forth like 4 times over. I'm living between a room in my friend's home and her little tiny camper. So when they go away and take the camper, I have to move all my crap. And you know, I don't have a lot, but like, it's like 3-4 trips. So I've had to move back and forth a ton. And I'm working at a new restaurant, and the hours are insane. And some nights I get home at 11, 11:30, and I still have 26 chickens and 4 goats to take care of, 5 dogs and a cat. So I've been a little off the mark. So I do want to just apologize for that, because I should have had my ducks in a row with this. I should have had stats to back me up, and let you understand a little bit of what Tim was saying, because those stats are pretty incredible. I mean, 25 partners before the age of 23. My vagina has no idea what to do with 25 partners. I'm just going to be really blunt with y'all. And I'll leave you with that and my quirky sense of humor. Love ya. Have a great day.